Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 57. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Monday, Steelers Nation. It is not a fun way to start the month of December, the final month of 2025, as the Pittsburgh Steelers come off a terrible, listless, embarrassing, pathetic, enter word here, 26-7 loss to the Buffalo Bills at Acrisure Stadium on Sunday. Pittsburgh now 6-6 on the season, back out of the current playoff picture, and just a whole host of terrible to talk about. So, Dave, how you doing? We have not heard the song of your people in a while. I think they deserve it based on yesterday's performance, but take it away, Dave.
All right, I'll give it to them then. Gloom, despair, and agony on me. Deep, dark depression, excessive misery. Oh, if I had no bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. Oh, gloom, despair, and agony on me. I don't know, not too bad for being sick this morning, I guess.
Still got it. Yeah, well, the team also looking pretty sickly on the field. So 26-7, Pittsburgh. Second half, complete collapse. The offense did nothing the entire game. The defense run over to the tune of 249 yards by Buffalo, a record at Heinz Field, Acrisure Stadium, since that place opened up in 2001. And keep digging and finding new lows for this team. So we'll get to our housekeeping and touring plans and injuries and all of that stuff. But Dave, 30,000-foot view of this game.
I'm ready to unleash hell in December. Probably unlike the Steelers at this point here. And you want to talk about just a really uninspiring just game on both sides of the ball, and throw in special teams on top of it. You want to talk about the three-phase loss to the Bears the previous week. This was another three-phase loss, and an even better three-phase loss, feels like, in this game. You only run 43 plays on offense, time of possession, 41, almost 42 minutes to 18 minutes there. And I think you had kind of the stat of the weird on that. What was it? The second lowest time of possession in.
Right. Since time of possession became a recorded stat, looks like it was first tracked in 1983. This was the second lowest time of possession Pittsburgh has ever had in a single game, only trailing an 83 game, a 23-10 loss to the Bengals, in which Pittsburgh had the ball for 17 minutes and 52 seconds. So you could have blinked and missed the offense on the field, and you probably would have been better off for it.
I'm not surprised they lost the game, obviously. I'm more surprised in the nature kind of, and just the total listlessness overall of it. I was concerned about, even with Buffalo being without those tackles and having a kind of a reimagined wide receiver group, that they would try to lean into their running game in this, and I thought they would probably have some success in doing that. James Cook is a great running back. He's got great vision. He knows how to press the line and read second level guys. He's got great vision and all. So I kind of thought he would have a good day. I did not think that we'd be talking about the Steelers. Look, Mike Tomlin did not lie to us. This is a historic defense now officially, with the amount of rushing yards that they gave up, most at Acrisure / Heinz Field. And what was the other stat going back to 50-something years, the most in either Three Rivers or
this was the most rushing yards allowed by Pittsburgh at home since 1975, when the very same Buffalo Bills ran for 310. That was O.J. Simpson with a 227-yard performance. So history upon history.
Yeah, so we managed to fit in O.J. Simpson running against the Steelers. That's how bad this was here. Look, I mean the Bills leaned into their running game. They spammed mid-zone weak and duo against the Steelers, and the Steelers just had no answer for it. It became that scene out of Miracle again, again, again. And they were able to. They didn't do much, obviously, passing in this game, and they really didn't need to, but they effectively built what passing game they did have in this game off of their run success overall. The Steelers really couldn't do much on third down overall. The Buffalo 8 of 15 in this game.
You could have stopped after Pittsburgh couldn't do much.
Yeah.
That's probably a good place to end that sentence.
And look, I mean, offensively, it's the same old things we've been, talking about all season. The run game was super ineffective in this game. Sans a few nice runs, by Jalen Warren, I thought, and they were fortunate enough to have a couple of takeaways early in this game. Josh Allen gifted them the first one, and then Cook forced his own fumble, and the Steelers got that. They couldn't do anything with that that fumble though, and yeah, they they uglied them up enough to have a 7-3 first half lead in this game. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, let's see that deferred coin flip choice come into play here finally. And let's see if the Steelers can open up the second half with a good drive and go down there and kind of put, at least put a little pressure on the Bills there. And in the first play, Aaron Rodgers, sacked and fumbled and hurt and scoop and score. And at that point, I mean, the wheels were really coming off at that point, big time. And then you send Mason Rudolph into the game for like 5 snaps, and he decides you only want to live once, and throws the ball into triple coverage and manages to overthrow 6'7" Darnell Washington. See, I mixed in a 6'7" early in this show here as well too, and that's intercepted there. And yeah, it was all downhill. Just a couple of possessions into the second half there, and once again, you only run 43 play. Tom, we got to get some money back from Tom Mead, I think. We're getting robbed by Tom Mead with this charting on the offensive side of football, and thank God you're a team player. 74 offensive plays for the Buffalo Bills, and yeah, I mean 42-18 in the time of possession. What turnover lead that you did have in this, a 2-0, quickly evaporated in the second half there, and you just had the Bills just spamming you with the same run plays over and over again, and you can't stop it, and you get what you get at that point. And as far as pushing the football down the field, the Steelers quarterbacks combined to try to have an intent, or had an average intended air yards of a little over 5 yards down the field, but their completed passes, all 10 of them, averaged out to be 2 yards past the line of scrimmage. They tried to take a couple of shots down the field, failed at that, especially early in the game with Calvin Austin III and Roman Wilson. Later
How
on,
many passes beyond the line of scrimmage did Pittsburgh complete in this game? 4?
Not many, Bob. I'll have to pull up here real quick what it was on
I don't think they
that.
had one in the first half. I think that was the stat. I think you had said that. Somebody had said that.
Let me see if I can pull up the completions here.
Or just the pass chart.
You mean past the line of scrimmage period, right?
Yes, completions past the line of scrimmage.
All right, let's see here. I've got that sorted, and then that 5.
Terrific.
And they had one in the first half. That was the short right to DK Metcalf for 14 yards. Let's see. And then the rest of them in the fourth quarter, you had the pass short to Darnell Washington for 19 yards. You had the Metcalf for 10 yards. You had Washington for 26 yards, and you had Gainwell for 8 yards. So you completed 5 of your 10 passes past the line of scrimmage. And the air yards on the 5 that they completed were 11, 3, 6, 17, and 1.
So Pittsburgh still has not had an air yard or completion of 20 or more yards in over a month now.
Yep.
I think my favorite stat of the weird that I didn't include in the article was that Matthew Marksy from Steelers Depot said in our chat, after the third quarter, Pittsburgh had already lost the time of possession battle for the entire game. The Buffalo had the ball for 32 minutes at that point and just ran up the score at the end. As you said, as players have said, as TJ Watt seemed dejected and exasperated post-game, Buffalo just did the same thing over and over. I don't feel like Pittsburgh was unprepared for this game. I think they had a good idea about what they wanted to do, their personality, their run scheme. I don't think that was the issue, but that is almost a larger problem because we talk about, what's coming and you can't stop it. And usually that's for the offense and a positive, and it was for Buffalo. They did the same thing over and over again. Pittsburgh couldn't stop it. And of course, that becomes a negative for the Steelers. And they tried a bunch of stuff. They threw all the mud at the wall that you could, and nothing worked. And that's pretty damning when you can't, as a Steelers franchise that has prided yourself on stopping the run since the days of the 70s, the Steel Curtain, Mean Joe Green and company, and you just get run all over, just your will taken away by Buffalo as they moved you from point A to point B again and again and again. And that is not necessarily new. Pittsburgh's run defense has been inconsistent this year, but to this degree is really embarrassing.
Yeah, it is. And, look, I mean, there's only so many run schemes that teams run anyway. They just run different versions of them out of different personnel groupings, different formations. So several times, I think in this game, the Bills just went back to they didn't try to hide anything.
Right.
As far as formations personnel, they said, okay, well, if that worked, let's do it again. And I think what did James Cook say after the game? We kind of the game plan here was try to get to the outside with some of these runs because we don't think that their cornerbacks and defensive backs want to tackle all that much. And he was right within that. And they once again this ended up being mid zone week and duo. And mostly duo in this, and I don't think Buffalo has leaned that much in. It's something that they run, but I don't think they've leaned into it all that much like they did against the Steelers on Sunday. But once credit to them, they did not fix something that was not broken. And the Steelers had no answer for it. They couldn't stop the backside cut, and look, it was telling right from the first snap on, right? You let James Cook out the back door there for, I don't know, 14, whatever yards it
19,
was.
I think it was 18, 19.
And, that kind of, I mean, that was foreshadowing of what was going to come from that point forward there. And look, you knew that you had to get to Josh Allen in this game and in opportunities that he did pass, and a couple of times that they did get pressure on Josh Allen. He escaped it. 0 sacks in this. You knew that you're probably going to have to take the ball away multiple times, and effectively they did. They got the early interception there, and obviously the early fumble recovery there. But you give it all back in the second half, and really your only points of the game came off of one of the turnovers there, and you couldn't do anything offensively at all, and even though Josh Allen wasn't didn't have a great night as far as passing the football in the game, it was good enough. And then what was the most, I don't want to say most embarrassing because there was a lot of most embarrassing moments of this game. But late in the game, he takes off with the football, uses his legs, and the Steelers just allow themselves to get pushed into the end zone with that last touchdown there. And that was just the exclamation point on the kind of look. Teams no longer worry about looking at we got to go to Pittsburgh and play the Steelers in Pittsburgh. That's no longer a thing anymore. You saw obviously the fans booing a lot, and deservingly had deserved to do that, booing Renegade. This is no longer a feared team. This is no longer a defense that you fear playing. You don't feel like you're going to come out of a game against the Steelers black and blue, and those they have no identity. They've lost that identity, and they've got to earn that back. And you're not going to earn that back in just one game or two games at this point. You've got all this money. You've got remember I asked you that question at the end of the show the other day there. How would you rate, from just a personnel standpoint, from an athletic and personnel standpoint, how would you rank this defense? And you might have overrated them a little bit there, but they have talented guys there, and they've sunk a lot of money into this thing, but they're definitely not getting the return on their investment at all at this point. And now you've got yourself in a situation now where you're backed into a corner. You got to go on the road and play the Ravens, who obviously are not a great team. But when we came into this game saying, this isn't your uncle's bills, or however you want to phrase it. This was a team, and that was hurting as well too. Look at the people they did not have. Even Dalton Kincaid did not dress for this game. Their wide receivers and their tight ends did a fantastic job in the blocking game. Their two tackles that they started, one essentially was a guard, did a fantastic job in this game, and they just controlled the line of scrimmage and dictated what they wanted to do on offense. And yeah, you kind of stymied them for a little bit in the first half, but even so, I think James Cook had something like 90 something total yards from scrimmage at halftime. And quite honestly, you were a little bit lucky to some degree that you had that 7-3 lead at halftime there. But the wheels obviously really came off in the right in the second half, both offensively and defensively. And at that point anyway, you're way behind in total net yards in the game. And yeah, it was just an appalling thing to watch. It was really kind of a boring game overall. And on top of it, the Steelers were just easily out executed on both sides.
You're right. I think you made the good point a moment ago. The teams sit there and say, we can run on Pittsburgh. James Cook said that. Let's go run on their edges. Their corners can't tackle. They're one of the worst tackling groups in football. Let's go run on these guys. And that's something that Pittsburgh, again, has prided themselves on stopping the run, of making teams one-dimensional, a plan that has not always worked. We've seen Jordan Love and Caleb Williams have success through the air despite inconsistent or non-existent run games, but it has been a point of consistency for the large swath of 50 years, since the steel curtain. But in recent years, and certainly this year, the run defense has really ticked down and become a unit that can and teams intend to run on. So new lows for Pittsburgh, the booing, as you said, of Renegade, the fire Tomlin chants, which we'll talk about here in a second. But Dave, let's kind of reset, talk about our housekeeping sponsor, touringplans.com. Have a lot of housekeeping to address before we get back into this 26-7 loss. So if you want to be cheered up, and you probably do after a loss like this, and want to plan a trip to Disney World or Disneyland or Disney Cruise Lines, check out touringplans.com to help you prepare, become the most informed person on the planet for restaurant reviews, how to save money on tickets, wait times, and how to beat the rush and don't stand in line for 90 minutes. watching that game yesterday felt like standing in line for a ride for 90 minutes, Dave. Not a whole lot happened, and you just said, when can we can get off this ride? So check out our friends over at touringplans.com. Len Testa, the founder of the site, big time Steelers fan, so a lot of support there. They've been a training camp sponsor for a long, long time, decided to continue the partnership into our Monday podcast. So check out the site, touringplans.com. Check out the app and tell them Steelers Depot sent you. Okay, Dave, from
They always have a good game plan. They're always prepared.
They are, unlike the Steelers, that is for sure. All right, Dave, from a housekeeping standpoint, Pittsburgh making roster moves on Saturday before the game. They placed offensive tackle Broderick Jones on injured reserve with a neck injury. Jerry Dulac reporting that Jones is expected to miss the rest of the season. We don't know the exact details behind the neck injury. Was a stinger against Chicago, a freak, weird moment pulled down by a Bears player in the second half of that Week 12 game, and so Jones appears to be done for the year. Andres Pete starting at left tackle yesterday. Pittsburgh on Saturday promoted and elevated cornerback Asante Samuel Jr. from the practice squad to the 53-man roster. He made a Steelers debut after James Pierre left with a concussion. Darius Slay, a healthy scratch, inactive, as it appears that Pittsburgh finally throwing in the towel on that disappointing and missed signing. Pittsburgh's inactives yesterday. Will Howard returned as the emergency third-string quarterback. Derek Harmon out with that knee injury. Logan Lee did not get the hat. Darius Slay, Scotty Miller also inactive. It was Broderick Martin Rhodes making his Steelers debut. It was not a good Steelers debut for Broderick Martin Rhodes. Maybe Lee gets the hat for this Ravens game if Harmon cannot come back. In-game injuries, James Pierre with a concussion. He's in protocol. Patrick Queen, a hip contusion per Tomlin. He did not finish. As you mentioned, Aaron Rodgers, after that strip sack fumble, first play of the second half, bloody nose. Looked like he hurt his wrist a little bit, but he returned after one series. Really not a lot of commentary on his injury post-game. Rodgers said he hoped it was not broken. Tomlin offered no color on Rodgers' injury, but he should play against Baltimore. By the way, Pittsburgh did not go under center in this game because of Rodgers' wrist injury. They did the old pistol and shotgun way to try to get their way through.
All right, lot to chew on there. Aaron Rodgers looked like I did after several parties in high school. There it looked beat up. Overall, and yeah, he and I guess the early word, he hopes his nose is not broken. They had to stop the bleeding. That's why he missed the series that he did there. The cut on the nose and all. He seems to think that he might be able to get under center this next game against the Ravens. So we'll have to see about that. Back to the inactives real quick. I had 3 of the 5 right. I was not convinced that they would sit Darius Slay down for this game, even though they had elevated Asante Samuel Jr. I went with the thinking that maybe Sebastian Castro, being that is how they had all their linebackers ready for this game. I thought maybe Castro might be the odd man out there. He was not. Darius Slay was the defensive back to lose the helmet. That's quite the indictment on him. And look, I mean, I'm not arguing with the decision. I just was not convinced that Mike Tomlin would pull the plug on Darius Slay. But now that he has, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube at this point. So impressive, at least, that they went that way and finally got Asante Samuel elevated, sat Darius Slay down. And the other miss there was I was not convinced that they would go with the bigger body in Broderick Martin Rhodes there. I thought, look, Logan Lee is a former draft pick. He's obviously played sometime in the middle in the few snaps that he's had, especially in preseason and all. I thought they would go with the former draft pick over the new guys, so to speak, there. So how much of an indictment is that on Logan Lee? Was it more positional aspect? Probably there, but that's a look into the inactives. I hit on Scotty Miller. I had a feeling that Scotty Miller would lose the helmet in this one. Look, he's barely He's barely played on both offense and special teams to this point there. So that wasn't a surprise. And then obviously Harmon missing with the knee injury, and Will Howard was your third quarterback there. So the other bit of news, and we've got plenty of time to talk further about this moving forward here, but Broderick Jones out for the season now. I think we differ on opinion, at least at this point of the season here. You know, his fifth-year option is due during the offseason. I think that number is expected to be like 19-something million, close to 20 million when it comes to, if you pick that option up, that would be for the 2027 season. It would be fully guaranteed once you do exercise the fifth-year option. I'm not convinced the Steelers do it, but you seem to think that Broderick Jones has done enough and deserves it at this point.
Convinced for me would be a strong word, but I think they do pick it up as things stand today, unless that neck injury is so serious there is some sort of longer term concern, which as of now there is no indication of, though obviously it's serious enough to keep him out the rest of 2025, at least according to the report. At least the next 4 weeks, obviously, but we'll assume he's out for this season until otherwise told. We'll debate that more in the
Right.
offseason, like you said. I don't think we need to get into a big back and forth about that, but I think he's done enough and shown enough improvement, and the cost is big. But by 2027, what will that be as a percentage of your cap? That will go up twice by then. Not a huge sum, relatively speaking. So I think they do, but we'll talk about that later.
Right. But what you're doing though is if you do exercise that, you're saying that you have your tackles and you have your center and you have probably at least one of your guards. We'll see what happens with Sayamalo after the season. I kind of hard to imagine him being back, even though pound for pound, he's probably, at least as of late, and so especially being able to play through the pectoral, he's been a pretty reliable guy there. At left guard, has he done enough to get extension? We'll have to see there. But I mean, if you do pick up that fifth-year option on Broderick Jones, you're saying, okay, we're set at tackle here through 2027.
Sure. With Pierre's injury, we'll see if Slay gets a hat, but obviously Pittsburgh really admitting their mistake here on Darius Slay. Would Slay ever ask for his release? Wouldn't blame him if he did. Wouldn't blame Pittsburgh if they granted it. I know no one will care about this in the middle of a terrible loss, one of the worst in recent memory, but I think the Steelers have to be looked at for allowing James Pierre back into that game after he got hit at the end of the first half. There was that kind of scrum on that third down where the piles, everyone's standing up, trying to push one way or the other. A lineman comes in, hits Pierre hard, trying to push the pile forward. He goes down, and it looked to me like he was knocked out. I mean, he is not moving. His hands are up in that fencing position, which is common with head and neck injuries. Cam Hayward tries to move him for some reason. He eventually walks off on the field under his own power, and then comes back in. Really, the next play, it was a timeout by Buffalo on a fourth down, and then Pierre comes in, and he did not come out for the second half and was ruled out with a concussion. When a player is motionless on the field, they should not come back into the game. So I don't know how he got cleared, how he was allowed, what that process was. But in the interest of player safety and head and neck injuries, something went very, very wrong.
Yeah, you're right. Well, they'll probably have to take a look at that, and I imagine he's going to be in protocol for most of the week here if he even makes it out of it by the time they play the Ravens.
And there's independent concussion specialists that are here to point these things out. So again, I don't know the exact details. I want to go back and watch it again, but I was very surprised to see him back, and that is not how this process should be working, but I know that no one really cares about that particular point. All right, Dave, let's go back into this game. 26-7, Pittsburgh beat every which way possible. 166 yards of offense, allowed 249 on the ground alone. Led 7-3 at halftime, but another example of Pittsburgh leading at halftime and completely blowing it in the second half where the wheels fell off in short order. So where do you want to start here? Offense, defense? Albuquerque, take your pick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, start on the defensive side of football. Give up 372 net yards. You give up 249 rushing net. That's once again Mike Tomlin did not lie. We have a historic defense that we're talking about this year, and not in the most positive way here. And going into what did I say when I said mapping out a way for the Steelers to win? I thought that Buffalo would have to play a part in it and try to shoot their own selves in the foot, and they damn sure tried in that first half. Right, 3 false start penalties, which really put them behind the chains overall. There, Josh Allen threw the interception. They fumbled the football away. There, the Bills did everything that they could try to do to try to keep the Steelers around, in addition to them having success running the football overall, and the Steelers could not take advantage of it. In totality, there they fortunately. Look, if not for that nice Gainwell catch, on that kind of that escort flare out to the right side there to get that ball down deep, you kind of wonder if the Steelers would have even scored on that drive. But back to the defense here overall, Buffalo just stuck with the run. And here's some breaking news for you here, Alex. I know.
Okay.
Get ready for this. All right.
Okay.
Josh Allen registered his quickest snap to throw time all season against the Steelers, 2.4 seconds.
Glad I was sitting down.
All right, good. You're sitting down on that. There. His next quickest snap to throw time was the week prior against the Houston Texans when he was sacked 8 times. 8. Should have been 9. But he got knocked forward on one of those there. But that was a 2.55 time to snap to throw time against the Texans, and it was 2.46 against the Steelers on 23 passing attempts overall, and he only completed 15 of them, obviously, but those 15 were enough. He didn't have to really push the football down the field too terribly much in this game, and it's not a shock. We seem like we talk about it every week, where the elixir to fix the Steelers' pass rush is just to get the ball out, and they don't do a good job of rush and coverage going hand in hand at that point. So that's just another aspect of this, in addition to them being able to run the football successfully most of the night, was when they did drop back and pass. Josh Allen, except for a couple times, and even those times where he held on to the football, the Steelers could not get him. They had him a couple times. I think Highsmith had a shot at him. Watt had a shot at him. Seemed like there might have been one
Herbig
other.
had one, even though that was incomplete.
Right. They could not get him down on the ground, and Josh Allen didn't run a whole hell of a lot in this game, but when he did, he was effective with his feet and made the Steelers pay for it overall there. So it just goes back to, once again, they just spam their mid-zone week and their duo play, and a lot of times out of the same formation, same personnel, and the Steelers just could not stop it. And they wanted to get out on the edge against against these defensive backs, and they did, and the Steelers paid for it that way there. So the fact that you get spammed that way, I thought, coming into this, I thought we might see a quick passing game with a lot of the mesh concepts that Buffalo needs to run. They didn't have to rely on that hardly any in this game, because they were running the football so well.
Right. You ran 51 times, the most rushing attempts against Pittsburgh by a team since the 1985 New York Giants. And so you just ran at will and controlled the ball and controlled the game and set the tone. And how many times this season has the opponent set the tone to Pittsburgh? Again, those are things that should not happen. You talk about the core principles and fundamental foundational things, being the more physical team, bringing the more intense team, stopping the run, setting the tone. That has been Pittsburgh historically for the last, again, 50 some odd years. Not the case throughout this entire season, not the case throughout the last several seasons. The number of times the Cook just simply bounced those runs to the right, even if the corners made the tackle, and the corners didn't always miss the tackles. Samuel Porter made a couple in space. There's still 5, 6, 7 yards a pop on those. That's still very much on schedule and effective for any rushing attack. And again, Pittsburgh tried everything. I mean, I charted the game last night. They used their 3-4. They used their 3-4 over, a 3-3-5, a 2-5 with 3 inside backers, a 3-5, a 4-4, straight up nickel. Nothing worked. The success rates, the yards per carry across the board, terrible basically in every category in which Pittsburgh had, 5 or more, looks out of a particular package. And so they spun the dial. Nothing worked. But when you don't get off blocks, when you're not physical, when tight ends are completely washing you and blocking you up, man, Jackson Hawes had a great game for Buffalo yesterday, and he's their big blocking tight end, the rookie, done a great job. He's washing down linebackers, even had some good blocks on Y.A. Black, who was bad with his eyes. Overall, you get what you get. And again, just watching Cook bounce every run to the right, and when he didn't have to bounce it to the right, he could cut it up through the teeth of this defense. Queen, a bad game before he got hurt. A lot of questions about his future now. Yeah, it's just, you got beat up. You got taken two in this one. Not how it's supposed to work in Pittsburgh, but certainly how it's been going.
Yeah, and as far as their passing game went, talking about the Bills, they completed just 2 passes more than 7 yards past the line of scrimmage there. The first one came early in the game on a 3rd down and 8, which, by the way, they gave up once again, and we've seen this 3rd and 8. They give up 2 or 3 of those, I think, in this game. And let's see, early they had the 3rd and 8 pass to Brandon Cooks over to the right side for 13 yards there. But most of their completed passes that they had went, 13 yards, air yards, 2 air yards, 4 air yards, 5 air yards, 3 air yards, 7, 1, 5, 13 in the fourth quarter with 9:28. That was the one over to the right side to Dawson Knox. So 13 air yards on that. The final 2 were 1 and 2 air yards. So I guess good job. Good job pass defense, but I mean, once again, their game plan was built on running the football, and they did not have to push the football down the field all that much because there were a lot of 2nd and 3rd down makeable situations most of the night.
Yeah, again, you run the ball 51 times. The pass game really isn't much of an equation. I mean, I thought Pittsburgh made a couple plays early. Brandon Echols came to play, had the interception, Kozora and I to pick off Allen, then the 3rd down break up to Shakir on the slant. Herbeck had a couple plays with his pressure and setting the edge against the run, but that was it. That's all the positives there are for the defense in this game. I thought from a pass game standpoint, look at the 4th and goal touchdown Buffalo had, the lone passing score for Josh Allen in this game. He covered one guy on the entire play. There were 3 open Buffalo Bills, and it was Allen's for the taking. The tight end in the flat, Coleman, who caught the touchdown on the over, and then I didn't even realize this when I first saw the play. The escort swing on the right side is completely open. There's one guy, Peyton Wilson, against one blocker. That's a walk-in touchdown for Buffalo. Had the cat blitz by Echols. Allen avoided it, pumped, and then found Coleman wide open. I have no idea what coverage Pittsburgh was in on that play. Maybe that's the least of their worries, considering how bad the run defense was. But it just moments, big ones like that, where your defense completely just looks lost and has no idea what the other person is doing.
Yeah, they looked like they were trying to at least sort it out pre-snap too, and they sorted it right out into 3-on-1.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally what it was. I can't tell if they're in man, if they're in zone, some sort of combination coverage. I have no idea what they're doing on that play, and I don't think they did either.
Right.
So defensively, I don't know, Dave. I don't know where you begin to fix this thing. I don't know where you start. Pittsburgh's offseason mantra has completely failed. It was, let's get big, let's get physical, let's get some guys to stop the run after Derrick Henry and Baltimore ran for 299 and sent us home. A fine strategy to have. You load up on defensive linemen. I know it's just one guy, and run defense is an 11-man job, but man, when Derek Harmon does not play, Pittsburgh just gets run on all day long. And that was true of the first 2 games of the season against New York and against Seattle, and certainly true against Buffalo on Sunday. The backup linemen did not do a good job at all. Otomewa, Martin Rhodes, Black, I got to look at the tape. Didn't seem very good. I mean, no one did a good job, obviously, but you had some moments where your base defensive line was Black and Martin Rhodes and Otomewa, and that is just ripe for the picking to be run on.
Yeah, there's a couple of times I saw Keanu Benton easily reached by the guard, and turn back the other way, creating some nice run lanes right up the middle as well. So yeah, I mean, uh, this look, Harmon, you missed him, but was having Harmon on the field going to stop what happened in totality? I don't think so.
No, but I think there's something to be said about the 3 games in which he has not played. You've allowed, I don't know, 600 yards rushing, and I'm not even
Right.
exaggerating when I say that. Maybe not quite that much, but it's in that realm. What, a $180, I think, to the Jets, and maybe 120 to Seattle, and 249 now to Buffalo. I mean, Harmon has been excellent against the run, and I don't think Pittsburgh stopping the run and shutting James Cook down if Harmon suits up, but he seems to be a very core component to things. And of course, if he can't play against Baltimore on Sunday, then good luck.
Yeah, absolutely. Because especially if once again you got a back like Derrick Henry, if you can't make him stomp his feet in, and if he just gets those runways, I think Orlovsky had, what was the stat that Orlovsky had this morning that was interesting here as far as the Bills running game went. The Bills offensive line created 138 yards before contact in this game.
And Pittsburgh ran for, I think, a grand total of 58 in this game. It had 166 yards of total offense. So the Bills almost had as many yards rushing before contact as Pittsburgh had as an entire offense, run and pass, in this game, which sums up this one in a stat.
Yep, absolutely. They just had no answer for a couple of those schemes whatsoever, and that's that's concerning.
Yeah, to say the least. I mean, TJ Watt literally saying post game out loud, I've never seen a team run the same play over and over again and us just be unable to stop it. And Pittsburgh did try a lot. It was not for a lack of imagination in terms of personnel and different people on the field and rotations and different groupings. They did earnestly try about everything that you could do, and nothing worked. And that is as scary as anything when you sit there and say, we've done all that we think we can do. Does that now become on the players? It certainly leans towards the players, not to absolve the coaches, because coaching obviously not been good enough and has not been good enough throughout this season. And I expect changes to be made, after the season. But whenever you have an offseason creed of let's stop the run, and now you're not stopping the run, you're stopping it even worse than last year. I don't know how you get to that place as an organization.
Yeah, and you're not just talking about needing just one more player either.
Right.
You are. Look, we'll get into this aspect here in a little bit of the Mike Tomlin thing and what Art Rooney II is going to potentially think about all this. They, the same old narrative of, man, you got all this money tied up in their defense. And look, this team spent a little bit more in cash this year than even I thought they would spend. Well over $300 million in cash this year, and obviously a lot of it, man, you give Darius Slay $10 million guaranteed there, and you obviously go out and get a guy like Jalen Ramsey, and you invest the money in him, and then you end up having to move him to safety, and you obviously got the money that TJ Watt's earning, and Alex Highsmith, and Patrick Queen, and you look at some of these other guys, is Cam Hayward going to make it another season? Otomewa is going to be gone. A lot of these guys are just afterthoughts after this season anyway. You hope Derek Harmon can continue to get better and all, but that's just one guy there. I mean, it feels like this defense is lacking a lot of pieces still at this point moving forward. And look, I've said this several times. You are who you are about 7 or 8 games into this season or into any season. Generally, it's hard to find anything that goes that proves that wrong unless you were missing several guys at the start of the season on a certain side of football. Then you all of a sudden get those guys back in the second half, and then that obviously turns the tide there. But yeah, and look, the Steelers have been banged up a little bit on defense throughout the season. But look, you still like to think that they have majority of their best guys out there, and they are who they are at this point. 1 week of coaching and a good practice, in my opinion, even if you come out and do what you're supposed to do, or do what you hope that you can do against the Ravens. The only way they beat the Ravens, I don't want to get ahead of the horse here and all, or ahead of my skis, but you almost have to hope that much in the same way that the Ravens, we've seen the Ravens do this against the Steelers before as well too, and they did this against the Bengals. I think Derrick Henry had like 5 rushes or so in that first half against the Bengals. I mean, the Ravens getting away from what they do best sometimes plays into a lot of times plays into the favor of the opposing team there. But I mean, if I'm the Ravens, I'm just leaning on Derrick Henry and this offensive line in this game, and I'm much in the way with the Bills. I'm trying to get Derrick Henry on some of these defensive backs and see how much 1 week after having to deal with James Cook, how much they really want to tackle a guy like Derrick Henry here. So at this point, other than this defense somehow getting opposing quarterbacks to hold on to the football and getting several takeaways in a game, I mean that's the Steelers' plan, and has been for far too long now. Try to stop the run and let our stars try to take away the football, and that's it.
And while there are some injuries now to Harmon and to Sean Elliott, the group is relatively healthy. So where is your pride as a run defense? You can't use the injuries as an excuse. Not that you are, I'm just talking out loud, but Buffalo with their backup tackles and a lot of their weapons out, they didn't, largely miss beats in this game. The run defense is similar to 2021, which was abysmal, but back in 21, you had a ton of injuries that season. You were just putting in a bunch of guys at D-line, Daniel Archibong, Henry Mondeau, Isaiah Buggs for half a season. You could at least understand why the run defense was so bad. It should not be this bad with a group as relatively healthy as it is, but Pittsburgh just keeps finding ways to have new lows. And they have played good run defense in moments against Green Bay. That did a good job overall against Chicago last week, but it is so hit and miss. It is so unpredictable. And that makes it almost even harder to explain and all the more confusing when you've had moments of good tape against the Colts earlier this year and Jonathan Taylor, and yet you've had some really bad performances too just weeks after that. And that's the part that really confounds you.
Exactly. And, I've said this several times, you just don't know what you're going to get from that unit on a week-to-week basis, and that's super scary.
Yeah, no question. Anything else here defensively, it really just comes down to the run defense. Situationally, Buffalo, 3rd down, 8 of 15, 74 plays in this one. Pittsburgh's defense was clearly worn down by the end. They're on the field way too much this season. Partly that's on the offense, partly that's on the defense. I think those things always go hand in hand, but it's a tired, old unit that looks every bit of both.
Yeah, and the Buffalo offense had a grand total of 8 possessions in this game. 8. Now, obviously, a 9th one, technically, I guess, came on the sack, fumble, scoop, and score there. They only had the football 3 times, technically, in the second half, and they went 8 plays for a touchdown, 15 plays for a touchdown, and 14 plays for a field goal. So 29 and 8, 37 plays in 3 drives in the second half there. That's the only time that they touched the football.
Despite having 3 drives, they still had the ball more often than Pittsburgh, because those drives were 15 plays and 14 plays and 8 plays and staying on schedule, converting, running at will. And you're right, even in the first half when Pittsburgh's defense was playing better football, Cook was still running. They still were gashing Pittsburgh. It's not like Pittsburgh's run defense was good in the first half either. Just Buffalo was hurting themselves with false starts and, of course, the 2 turnovers. And once they stopped kind of kicking their own butt, then they completely put it to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and look, for their first 4 possessions of the game, their starting field position, their own 23, their own 18, their own 13, their own 20. Obviously didn't score there. And then the Steelers scored and kicked off. Buffalo takes it at the 31, gets a field goal there. And then the second half, they started at their 44 via the interception by Rudolph, and their final 2 possessions at their own 17 and 9. So, for the most part, the Steelers had them in some tough field position situations, but the defense couldn't get off the field.
Yeah, I thought Cam Hayward played a decent game on the field without getting into the tape, but he just rode this emotional roller coaster after that incident with Josh Allen. And Hayward says that Allen need him and says Allen said as much. Allen has not commented directly on his actions after that Hayward tackle, I think after a third down run by Allen, but you had Hayward jawing with Allen the rest of the way. And I don't know if they got into his head. You just can't ride that wave. I mean, after the 4th and goal touchdown from Allen, Hayward jawing with Allen again. Like, what are you doing? Why are you jawing with this guy after they just scored and you had a wide open receiver as they're running it up? And Allen talked about that, kind of fired them up after that moment. And, I don't know what Allen exactly did.
You cost yourself a penalty in that one, right?
Yeah.
Then it allowed them to do the old kick the ball out of bounds, right?
Right, yeah, exactly, 100%. The tactic Pittsburgh used earlier this year that's become popular after those personal fouls on those scoring plays. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what Hayward's doing there, and I understand being pissed off, but I think he kind of let that get to him and did not use that and channel that positively. So, even your captains, I think, are kind of playing out of sorts. Your captain defensively, Hayward, is more focused on jawing with Josh Allen than anything else. It felt like Patrick Queen on Twitter post game is trying to clap back at Trey Essex. That's your hub of communication. And Queen, granted, he didn't finish this game with a hip injury. So those are 2 core guys on your defense, and it feels like their heads are in different places.
And we'll have to see about Derek Harmon. And you hit on a good thing right after the Tomlin press conference on Tuesday. The fact that guys like Harmon and Broderick Jones were ruled out so early in the week. Now, obviously, we know more about Broderick Jones. He's not going to be back. But to the fact that Harmon was ruled out so early in the week, it calls into question, even though he wasn't put on IR, are you going to be able to have him for this game against Baltimore?
And generally, rookies need reps. It's not like a veteran that could go and not practice or barely practice all week and then suit up. Although if Harmon can play on one leg, then I'm going to play him in this game because you need somebody who can go out there and stop the run. So we'll see. And by the way, Deshaun Elliott basically confirming in an interview earlier this week that he's not going to come back this year. He's getting ready for next season. So if you had any hope that D. Elliott could come back late in the season to try to salvage this thing, that is not going to happen.
All right.
That's all I got defensively, Dave.
Yeah, and I have no answers of how it gets better.
No pride. Pittsburgh pushed around from the word go, and that is not where this franchise is supposed to be, but it's certainly where they are. Offensively, the conversation does not get any better. The question is, does it get worse? An offense that put up just 7 points, shut out in the second half. Again, a really bad second half team. Pittsburgh continues that trend, been outscored by 42 points in the second half of games this year, 23-0 in this one versus Buffalo. No run game, no pass game, nothing at all.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I mean, you only run 40-something plays on offense. I had something sorted out here. This is a Buffalo defense that you thought that you should be able to have some run success on. They obviously did not. Let me sort this out real quick. On 1st and 10 plays for the Steelers, they ran. How many times did they run on 1st and 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, with 5 of those coming in the second half. So first half, they only ran on 1st and 10 twice.
Yeah, I mean, part of this is game script and a lack of plays, obviously, but they did not run the ball well even when the game was close in the first half. There was no real consistent run game. There was 1 2nd and 10 run by Warren that was good, and that was kind of about it in this one. So I understand Pittsburgh wants to be able to have their own war of attrition and be able to run late and wear teams down and you couldn't get to that point, but you had no run success against a Bills team that has been abysmal stopping the run the entire season.
Yeah, and I did Larry Ogunjobi even play? I say that facetiously. I mean, I know he did, but he only had to play. How many snaps did Ogunjobi play in this one? 19. He played 44% of the snaps there. So you did not take advantage of that. They ended up being in good shape with Shaq Thompson having to play instead of the linebacker that they did not have in this game due to injury there, and I thought he played well. They just the Bills were not respecting the Steelers passing game whatsoever either in this. And the few shots that you took downfield, look, I love Calvin Austin. I think Calvin Austin can bring you a lot of things to or do some things on offense with his speed and all like that. But you throwing the football down the field in a 50-50 kind of ball situation, he's not going to win that most of the time there. I mean, we have seen him win some of these 50-50 balls down the field, but he damn sure wasn't going to win that one in this game. So that was one of your shots down the field on a 50-50 ball early to him, and then on another one down the field to Roman Wilson. I know Aaron Rodgers took the blame for it, says that was a shitty ball, I got to throw that better and all like that, but it did kind of feel like he expected. Now the wind obviously was an aspect in this game to some degree, which made it throwing the football down the field a little bit more difficult there. But that play's there to be had. Roman Wilson won off the line of scrimmage, got stacked a bit on the outside. Should he have drifted more to where the ball actually landed? It feels like Aaron thought he was going to be in that area there. I don't. Once again, I understand Aaron taking the blame on it, but if that ball's where Roman Wilson is, I kind of worry about how if Roman would have got lit up a little bit on that one from the safety up coming over the top.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. When Rodgers says it was a bad ball, I'm going to trust that it was a bad ball, but I thought initially that one might have been where Rodgers wanted Wilson to now drift towards the sideline away from the safety, but bottom line is when receivers got open, quarterbacks could not get them the football. And when quarterbacks were going through their reads, things weren't open half the time either. So if it wasn't one thing, it was the other. Whether you talk about Austin not making that combat catch on third down on a tough play, but plays that receivers get paid to make when quarterbacks don't have vision on the football. Whether you talk about Johnny Smith missing the signal for a would-be touchdown over the middle. Johnny Smith is somehow still playing over Pat Frymouth. Frymouth does not get a single target, let alone a catch in this game. No idea how that is acceptable. Whether that's receiver slipping, DK Metcalf slipped on one, speed out. Whether that's just nobody getting open, which was repeatedly the case. Off play action, which has been more harmful than helpful to Pittsburgh this year. I mean, it just go through all the plays here, Dave. Whether you talk about Rodgers missing a wide open Jonnu Smith on a mesh concept, the one time where the ball should go.
I got the clip of that out on Twitter this morning.
Did you? Okay, yeah, where the ball should go to Jonnu Smith completely. I mean, it was wide. I have not seen the all 22. I assume it was as wide open as it appeared on the TV tape. Where is that clip at? I generally have not seen it yet here.
Let me see if I got it. Can send it to you here. But yeah, he turned down Jonnu Smith on. I mean,
how do you miss mesh? There's foundational stuff, and it's not even like it's another part of the progression. Like you're reading the mesh point as your progression, and you throw it to a completely covered DK Metcalf instead of a wide open Jonnu Smith. And I don't know how you miss that. It's not like it's just go read the open receiver. You're reading that concept, and Rodgers flat out misses it. I mean, Mason Rudolph completely throwing into triple coverage and overthrowing somehow, throwing out Washington. I mean, it is just, if it's not one thing, it's the other. There's no pass game. There's no concepts that work. There's no threat. There's nothing at all. I don't know. I don't know where you go.
And then even on the, I sent you that clip, by the way, to DM. You should have it there. And even on the, once again, to the sidecar screen over to Gainwell over there. That's a bad ball. Thank God Gainwell bailed him out in that situation there.
Yeah, your best receivers continue to be your running backs. Your running backs had more receptions than any other position group in this great game. Granted, it was not a lot of receptions, 10 in total. God help us. But yeah, your receivers are not making plays. So DK Metcalf again, quiet game, 3 catches, 32 yards. He's been under 55 yards in every game for 2 months now, I think. I don't know. It's just so bad across the board. You just don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, they can, and you had to talk this past week with Arthur Smith. How do you go about creating more chunk plays and all like that? And obviously, they weren't able to push the football down the field. They weren't able to get really good yards after the catch outside of bulldozer Darnell Washington in the second half, and pretty much the Bills were thinking just don't get beat up over your head at that point. They were in a mood of we can bleed some of these yards off and time along with it. When it came to Darnell, it was good to see them get one middle of the field throw over to Darnell right in between the hashes. We talked about that during the week and how that's been few and far between this year. I want to go back to the missed communication between Aaron Rodgers and Jonnu Smith down on that would-be touchdown there. He was asked, it seemed like you and some of the receivers were off on some of the routes, the go ball to Roman Wilson, the one to Jonnu Smith. It seemed to settle down. There were some scramble drills that seemed a little out of sync. How do you guys build that connection this far into the year? How do you go through that with the pass catchers where you say, hey, maybe I saw this, you see this, iron those out over the last 5 games of the season? And Aaron says, when there's film sessions, everybody shows up. When I check to a route, you do the right route. Like Jonnu and I just weren't on the same page. I checked to his in breaker and he ran the out breaker. Jonnu's a true professional. I'm sure he's sick about that. I threw a ball I thought was going to get hit by the wind, and it was 4 yards over Roman's head. So that's a shitty throw. I've got to make that throw. We have our meetings every week. We have other opportunities outside of the facility. Look forward to seeing all the boys there. Was he trying to say that Jonnu maybe was not at the film session?
I know those comments have gotten some play. Florio wrote about it on Nightcap. Chad Johnson, Shannon Sharp had a long discussion. I can't quite make heads and tails of what that comment meant. I know that interpretation is one way to look at it, and maybe that's true, but the question itself from the reporter was so windy that the answer itself was sort of windy. So I don't know if he's trying to say that Johnny wasn't there or that other players weren't there because there was talk about other situations too, or if these are mandatory sessions that people are skipping, or these voluntary sessions, or I don't know. I think it's too messy for me to conclude anything from that.
What do you think about, some have the narrative, oh, we're starting to see Aaron Rodgers come out now and throw people under the bus, but I mean, Aaron did take, responsibility that he wasn't great in this game and all. I mean, we saw him with Mike Williams when he was with the Jets and all. I mean, you expect this Aaron's not going to bite his tongue on these kind of things. And is it okay that he doesn't?
I mean, it's what you're signing up for. And this is no different than how we talked earlier in the season. When there was a bad play or a missed opportunity, Rodgers would talk about it. He will give you an honest answer, and I can appreciate that. It's certainly good for us to be able to talk about these things because most quarterbacks don't get to that kind of level. So it's always about results. When Pittsburgh was winning earlier in the season and Rodgers would make this comment here and there, no one cares because you're winning and life is good. When you're losing and you're in this rut Pittsburgh is in, these things get magnified more. So I thought Rodgers did just fine in the post-game presser. I thought his level of calm and kind of even-keeledness is what Pittsburgh needs from their leaders when things are bad. You got to be that calm guy that's not freaking out and panicking too, easy as it is. And there is certainly a lot to panic about, but you can't do that as the leader. So I thought Rodgers said basically all the right things in this one. And maybe people don't like him being that honest and that critical of what happened on the field. But I think that's we saw how bad it was. You don't need Rodgers' criticism to know how bad it was. So I think he's not hurting and doing more quote unquote damage. And again, he's that honest guy that will give you the honest answer. He's always been that kind of guy. He was that guy early in the season when times were good. is going to be that guy now, and so I see no issue.
I assume the signal on that play was the hands to the throat, right? But Jonnu never even looked back and saw it, I don't think.
I have not gotten a chance to review the offense. I started the defense last night, but yeah, probably, I'm sure, whatever signal it was obviously missed. And Jonnu Smith continues to offer this team nothing, not just as a receiver, but as a blocker. They're asking him to reach out in space. He missed one block on a toss. That 4th and 2 play, Jonnu Smith trying to block down on Rousseau for some reason. When you have Washington, you have Anderson. You give the ball to Kenneth Gainwell instead of Jalen Ward. No, what is your personnel? What is even happening on that play? Yeah, you're not going to win that game, I'm sure, either way, but what are you even trying to do with the people that you have? Do you have any understanding of the personnel of who you have and their strengths and weaknesses? And yeah, maybe there's this thought of we don't want to be too predictable and do the same thing over and over again, but man, you're just not putting those guys in positions to succeed, and you get what you get when that happens.
Yeah, it's almost like they're trying to outthink themselves on top
Yeah.
of everything else there, because Darnell Washington was on the other end of the line of scrimmage. And if there's one player, one tight end, heck, I'd much rather take my chances with Connor Hayward into the line of scrimmage than I would Jonnu Smith, you know?
When things aren't working, you can't get too cute. Maybe when things are working, you want to try to have some sort of layer or some sort of tendency breaker. Okay, I guess I can get that. But when things aren't working, go with what you know. Go with the guys that can produce the best results. Maybe it's too predictable, but Buffalo had no problem doing the same thing and executing and just simply playing better football than the opponent. So that was bad. You had a 3rd and 9 run to Gainwell that Rodgers certainly took some issue with when the reporter pressed him upon it and walked through the play and talked about the nickel pressure Buffalo was showing, so they ran into it, and Gainwell got about 8 yards on the play, but then you punt on 4th and 1.
Right. You call a questionable play on that down the distance there, and you end up, and I know Aaron said, well, if you get a first down, nobody's goddamn talking about it, blah, blah, blah. But then you turn around and you had the success that you had. You're not going to go for it on 4th and 1 or 4th and 2, whatever it is in that situation?
Yeah, now that's a check to the run, so I know there's a
Right.
pass and a run call. They check to the run, you can see the formation shift, so Rodgers gets both calls, and he can choose whatever he likes based on what he sees. But the point is, if you're going to run on 3rd and 9, which I still don't want to do, but if you are going to do it and then you get 8 yards, how do you not go for it on 4th down? Mike Tomlin continues to be conservative. Right? I know the game wasn't over then. It was, 16... I think it was 16-7, 3rd quarter. Pittsburgh's at their own, 35-yard line. But in this era, we're seeing guys be aggressive. You're going to go back and win these games and shift momentum in your favor. You can't call a 3rd and 9 run, get 8 yards, and then punt. You just can't do it.
Yeah. And I thought the Bills said, "Hey, we ain't concerned about the passing game. We don't have no issue blitzing on early run downs," and they were successful overall. I think generally when they did that, and the Steelers still had no answer in the passing game. Now that once again we pointed out the miss. Rodgers did miss a couple of I thought maybe open guys. We talked about Jonnu on the mesh. Boy, and you pointed this out. Are there 2 players that have never that just have not meshed at all season in Aaron Rodgers and Jonnu Smith? I mean,
I've
we
never
saw
seen
that.
2 players have fewer chemistry and
Right.
be on the same page, not on the same page as often as those 2 guys. We've talked about this weeks ago. We were saying, like, these guys feel like they never have any involvement, any chemistry. Never hear Aaron talk about Jonnu Smith. Yesterday, talking about the true professional was the first time I've heard him even mention Jonnu Smith for the first time in months, maybe. He always talks about Frymouth and Big Darnell and DK and everybody else but Jonnu Smith. I mean, there's just no fit there. And Johnny's not producing when the chances come. And when he gets open occasionally, Rodgers isn't seeing him. He missed him on the ball against the Chargers. He missed him on the mesh route here. Smith not getting signals, dropping passes, and that. It's at the Colts game, the first pass, he drops that pass. I mean, you couldn't imagine worse results between a quarterback and a tight end than what Rodgers and Jonnu Smith. What is the quarterback rating when Jonnu Smith is targeted this year? And that doesn't even count some of the times where he's been missed. It's got to be bad.
You'll have to look that up to see. It's not great, obviously, and even his yards per reception's like 6 something, I think.
Well, it's 94, but that's because of the 2 touchdowns that would have been kind of short stuff. But obviously, the results have been a bit abysmal for Jonnu Smith. He's got 30 catches for $190, 6.3, 2 touchdowns. He's got 1 first down in his last 6 games, I think it is. Hasn't had more than 25 yards in a game the entire season. Hasn't scored since the first game against the Bengals in Week 7. Yeah, I mean, it's awful.
This is a guy that Arthur Smith obviously knows well, and probably part of the reason why he was brought in. This is a tight end in Johnny Smith who had 88 catches for 884 yards for Miami, and you can't get him more involved in the offense in the passing game than you have been. And then don't even get us started on tight ends. Pat Freiermuth, 0 targets in this game.
Gets out snapped by Jonnu Smith. How does that keep happening? Can we just get one game? Give me one game where it's Washington and Freiermuth as your tight ends. Just try it. Where Jonnu, this is not your week. Sorry, we're going to go a different direction. We're going to see what this thing looks like. Washington obviously is your number 1. Freiermuth your number 2. Roll with that. I don't know. Kudos to Freiermuth for keeping a cool head about it. I'd be so mad. I'm sure he is if that was my involvement and role in the offense for a team that is struggling as much as it is.
And I hate to bring this up, but DK Metcalf really on pace to finish under 900 yards receiving now.
Yeah, I think you're gonna win this one, Dave, and that is an indictment on this passing game to not get your best guy the football really in any sort of creative or meaningful or interesting fashion.
I mean, you either hit him on the slant, it feels like with DK Metcalf, or try to hit him on a mesh, and or like you saw early in the game, boot out to him to the levels type concept and hit him on the lower level type deal. That seems to be how they think that they have to use DK Metcalf.
Yeah, I mean, there were some ways to try to get him the ball. I don't mind that boot action, first catch of the game, an early touch there. But even, again, just basic stuff. Runs an out, he slips. Rodgers has to look elsewhere. That becomes incomplete. There was, I think, running Hank open up on Rudolph's first throw, just skips it at his feet. I mean, it just, I don't know.
That was reminiscent of the Bengals game that we talked about a couple of years ago that ultimately got Rudolph bitched for Duck Hodges, him throwing things into the dirt there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point, back in 2019. So, yeah, Rudolph, 3 attempts, 1 interception. First Steelers quarterback on 3 attempts or fewer or more, I think was the stat. First Steelers quarterback to throw a pick on 3 attempts since Kent Graham in 2000. So
that's not good company.
Yeah, Rudolph also finished out the game, handed the ball off. Pittsburgh's offense at one point sat on the bench for about 35 minutes at the end of the first half there until they got the ball back and ran those 2 plays. The one screen to Johnny, who was only catch of the game, and I think a run as well, which I think Pittsburgh just did simply to get the offense moving a little bit after not running a play for a literal 35 minutes of real time there. So. And then come out of the second half again. Chance to come out of the second half, put some points on the board. You put the points on the board in Buffalo's column instead with a sack fumble, off play action, nothing open at all. The Rudolph interception, off play action, nothing open at all. Play action has been, week 1 it was good. Since week 1, play action has been completely abysmal and counterproductive to you as an offense. In the last 2 weeks, the sack fumble on 2nd and 12 against Chicago, that was off play action. Nothing there. This week, the Rudolph interception, the Rodgers sack fumble. You just can't run play action. And that's one reason of many why you can't get any big explosive plays. No one respects play action. They're not biting on it. No one's getting open. This team needs a route runner. This team needs an Antonio Brown, Deontay Johnson. Not saying go get AB, but you need a route runner, somebody who can get open and create their own separation. Roman can do that to some degree. That's generally about it. DK is not a particularly strong route runner. Calvin Austin, still for my money, has got a good release package, but as a pure route runner, mid-route, doesn't create a lot of space either, and the size is a limitation. This team needs a whole lot of things, obviously, but they truly need a true Lad McConkey, Calvin Ridley type of route runner, and they do not have it.
Yeah, and I hate to keep going back to this, but when you're only completing the football 2 yards down the field past the line of scrimmage, and especially if you're not getting yak in games, how do you expect to move the football?
Yeah, and they did not. They sure did a good job of not. If not moving the football was the way to win games, Pittsburgh would get the gold medal.
They got Caleb Johnson into the game for 3 snaps, final 3 snaps of the game. So look, I understand why Warren and Gainwell are getting the snaps and all like that. But if that was your plan to add Gainwell to this thing, and then obviously give Warren the contract, then why did you even draft a running back with the 3rd round pick then?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. Obviously, it's just been a lost season for Caleb Johnson. Too raw, too rough around the edges for what Pittsburgh needs with Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, mission accomplished. Get Johnson the 2 carries, and he had Zach Frazier with a snap that went awry, just to really add to the comedy of errors. You couldn't snap the ball, you couldn't throw the ball, you couldn't run the ball, you couldn't get on the same page, you couldn't keep control of the football, you couldn't avoid turnovers. I mean, literally, when was the last time Pittsburgh's offense had a worse outing? Was the Matt Canada 2023 get fired game worse? I don't think it was, because you at least hit the Jaylen Warren long touchdown in that one as a highlight of that game.
Yeah. Look,
Well,
they're
go ahead.
they're a mess schematic wise. As far as it's very high schoolish. It feels like with the scheme. If teams really concentrate, and that's what I think you saw the Bills try to do. Say, hey, we're going to bet that you can't throw the football down the field. We're not going to respect your run. We're going to blitz our DBs off the edge on early run downs to try to get more bodies in there, and you're going to have to prove to us that you can throw the football.
This
And they
offense
can't.
is so bad. If I'm an opposing DC, if I'm Zach Warren in Baltimore next weekend, I don't even know where to begin. Like, I don't even know how to address the threats of this team and the strengths of this offense to kind of talk about our game plan of what we have to take away. There really just is nothing there to even take away. Take away Warren, I guess. Bracket DK. And
That's it.
all you got to do, pretty much. Some of the short pass game, the escort swings, some of those weren't working. Had a great tackle by Milano on a 2nd and 10 or escort swing. I don't mind the call. Just Buffalo made the play, and they made the plays on Sunday.
There is when you look at all these other teams around the NFL. I mean, even Carolina. Look what Carolina did to the Rams. I mean, you just look around the NFL and some of the rhythmic for even some of these backup quarterbacks that are having to play and all like that. There is no rhythmic passing game for the Steelers whatsoever.
No, there's not. I mean, the very short RPO swing screen game, I guess, is kind of what Pittsburgh's calling card is, but that only gets you so far. It can only do those things for so long. And again, Pittsburgh, defensively, their offseason mantra was, let's get bigger, physical, stouter against the run. That failed. Offensively, the plan, let's get some playmakers in here. Let's get some more big explosive plays. And that is somehow worse, way worse than last season. So on both ends, offense and defense, Pittsburgh's plan of how we're going to improve has completely gone up in flames.
And how do you expect this to magically get better over the last 5 games of the season? No.
No, not at all. All right, special teams. Waitman struggles continue. Kick return team, really bad. The coverage team still doing a good job overall, but that's it.
Stupid penalty by Peyton Wilson.
Yep.
In this, you getting penalties after extra points or whatnot, field goals or whatnot. That can't happen. It's just a mess. All 3. Yeah. Once again, a 3-phase loss, and even a better 3-phase loss this time than against Chicago.
Truth. Pittsburgh 30th in kick return average. Lost in 1 punt return, which scared me the way he caught that off to the side. It was a good catch, but knew that could be tough with the wind, but that was almost disaster. No help on special teams.
All right, about the Chants and the fire Tomlin and how much louder that's getting.
It's going to keep getting louder.
Yep.
Maybe Pittsburgh is happy they'll be on the road this weekend at Baltimore.
Oh, yeah, I thought about that as well, too. It's a good thing that they're on the road in what is essentially a must-win game.
Right. So the fire Tomlin chants broke out in the second half. The booing of Renegade, the overall boos that started probably second quarter and only increased as Pittsburgh's lead evaporated and Buffalo took complete control of this game. Mike Tomlin asked about that post-game, says he shares in the team's frustration. Aaron Rodgers talked about that Fans pay good money for the tickets. They have the right to react however they want to react. Players asked about that. Obviously, what can you really say to that? But this thing continues to spiral, Dave. There'll be another hard conversation, at least in the media, about Tomlin's future. How Art Rooney responds to that, we'll see. But I'm sure he was at the game yesterday and was well aware of the product on the field and how fans were reacting to it.
Were you expecting Mike Tomlin to be? Look, I joked that I wonder if we're going to get another Unleash Hell post game press conference after this one. Did you expect Mike Tomlin to be a little bit more pissed off after this game?
I don't go in with a lot of expectations of how Tomlin's going to act. I think he does it a little more in the moment. I think he was trying to show restraint, like Aaron Rodgers, trying to have that level head and a sense of calm when things are bad. I think he almost lost it once on Brooke Pryor, which he does not like Brooke Pryor as a reporter for whatever reason. And he had to kind of restrain himself, I think, and just said, keep watching when asked about something to the effect of what gives you confidence that you can turn this thing around. And so obviously keep watching is a phrase he likes to invoke a lot. It's a tired phrase, but I think he used it just so he would not explode at the podium.
All right. Yeah, we'll keep watching, unfortunately.
What do you make of the fire Tomlin chance? I'm not even sure exactly how to take that question and give it to you, but what do you make of it all?
Look, this is miserable. This is I had this team going 10-7 this year. I obviously didn't think this was going to be a Super Bowl run. I thought the defense would be better than it's been. I didn't expect. I'm the one that predicted 800 something yards for Metcalf, but I thought they would be able to run the football more consistently, better than what they've been able to do. This is a mess, and it's not like they've lost a lot of guys for the season, at least notable guys and all like that. They did not. This goes to Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin. They did not put a good enough team together, and they're not coaching them well enough either.
What is Tomlin's future? I will take inventory of it. I think when the season ends, that's how I usually operate on any sort of thoughts on coaches and those big picture changes. You want to see how the year ends up. Pittsburgh, was 7-7 in 2023. They rallied and made their way into the playoffs. Could they do it again? Theoretically. Not looking great right now. Huge game against Baltimore. Must win, obviously. That still lies ahead. You still can win the division because it's so bad this year. But is there a chance this is the year that Rooney says, let's pull the plug? Let's move on.
Yeah, and maybe it's mutual too.
Yeah, I think any decision would be framed like that at the least. But, bottom line is there a chance there's a new head coach in 2026? That door, I think, has opened. To what degree? The rest of the season may dictate that. I still think after next year is the more likely time. But with how bad this thing is getting, that timeline could accelerate.
Look, even if you somehow manage to get into the playoffs, and right now it looks like the only way this team's going to get into the playoffs is if they win the division, quite honestly. And if you get bounced in the first round, like I would expect that to happen if they even get that far here, what is there to look forward to beyond this season into 2026? I mean, you don't. Who's your quarterback going to be? Even if Aaron Rodgers does return, it's going to be much of this. It feels like it's going to be much of the same old in the passing game. I've said this a few times now, and if there was ever going to be a good time to have a hard reset for this team, it would probably be after this season. I've lost all confidence now in the fact that Mike Tomlin can ever lead a Steelers team back, deep into a playoff run, at least in the next 2 seasons here. So, if that's the case, do you think Mike Tomlin has what it takes over the course of the next 2 or 3 seasons to lead this team to a deep playoff run?
Obviously it's so quarterback dependent in the NFL, and Pittsburgh has not found that, and Tomlin has to wear that to a large degree, obviously. Do I think he has what it takes? Unpopular as this will sound, yes, I think it's not like it's impossible for him to do so, but do I have any sort of confidence that's going to happen? No, absolutely not.
I don't have any confidence he can be that guy right now.
Um, I just feel like whatever plan they're putting together, they're throwing a lot at the wall. Done so the last couple of years with a lot of big roster upheavals, 5 different quarterbacks in 5 years, potentially now 6 and 6, and things have stagnated to getting worse. What do you have to look forward to next year? I think your offensive line is still generally intact, and that's promising. You got probably a dozen draft picks next year. That'll maybe infuse some youth into this team. But yeah, there's a lot of big fundamental foundational issues of this team that are not quick fixes.
And then we'll see what happens with the core. To me, if Tomlin's going to be this coach, they need to reset a lot of the coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, usually these things go in cycles. 2 years ago, Pittsburgh revamped a big chunk of the coaching staff. Last year was more of the focus on the personnel and the players. The coaches, there were a couple of minor changes, positional coaches, Grady Brown, Aaron Curry, Mike Sullivan, but largely it was personnel changes. And so you probably cycle back 2 coaches. And of course, personnel, you're always flipping that. But, I think you probably look more at the coaching staff. So Terrell Austin, would not expect back, obviously. Arthur Smith, what is his future? Does that
I would
depend on how this year
I would
finishes
go a
out?
different direction that way. I would.
Yeah. We'll see. I think I'll see how the year plays out. I think he has done some good things this year, but obviously in terms of being able to design and create any sort of meaningful drop back passing game or even play action game has not been there.
Yeah, and look, I know I know he's at the mercy of the personnel that he has, but he's had a hand in who he's brought over in the Scotty Millers, and I'm sure Johnny Smith and some of these guys, and if that's the kind of personnel he thinks he needs to run his system, well, you need to keep him away from personnel decisions.
Yeah, I know there's been some criticism that Tomlin's not letting Arthur Smith run his offense. I think he is. This is an Arthur Smith offense to me through and through in personality and scheme and people and groupings. And so I think Tomlin wears it, obviously, making the hire, and he's the head coach. But, Smith wears it too. I think he's getting to run what he wanted to run as an offense and, drafting Caleb Johnson as an outside zone runner. A lot of things there that feel very tied to Arthur Smith, Johnny Smith. The receivers, like you said, maybe even trading to a degree, George Pickens, knowing that multiple receivers don't get involved in an Arthur Smith offense. A lot of that reflects back on him for sure. All right, Dave.
I don't have a lot of confidence in this team moving into 2026 right now.
I don't think anyone does. I think the fan base I wrote about this morning. I know a lot of the fan base was already out on Mike Tomlin. I think basically they're all out on Mike Tomlin, and I don't think that's going to come back. Even if you beat Baltimore next weekend, you're not getting this fan base back. And the reaction is going to be, understandably so, is, yeah, they won this game. They're going to screw it up somehow later on. And I've gotten those comments a lot this year after big wins, after the Colts game, after beating the Bengals in the rematch, that, hey, great win, but nope, they're going to screw it up. This is not going to work, and they've been proven right so far. So I don't think, has the team given up on Mike Tomlin? Has Tomlin's message stopped working? I know that could be hard to sense from the outside, from our standpoint, but do you get that feeling at all?
Look, I will say this. I'd like to see what actually goes on behind closed doors in all the meetings and all. What the game planning looks like. Is it just rah? You got to get off your block. It seems like Mike Tomlin just says, let's just crush the run. Don't get beat in the flat and go get them, boys.
But do you think he's lost the locker room? Because to me,
I don't think he's lost the locker room. I just think that his message, I think it's, it's easy to say stale or whatnot. I just, I don't think he's coaching these guys up.
I don't want to lead you to the answer, but if you think the answer, if the message has become just rah rah and is not working, to me that is largely the definition of losing the locker room when your
Okay.
message is not resonating, when players are tuning it out, when they say we've heard this song and dance before, we just aren't buying it.
I mean, we're talking about the same things every week with this team, and not just one season now. It's just multiple seasons, and we'll see what the film says, and we got to correct it, and that can't happen. You might correct it for one game, like against the Colts, and then you turn around the next three, and you're back to talking about the same things again.
Yeah, I don't think yet the locker room has been lost. I haven't seen any give up from this team. I know some will disagree. I think they were very tired and they did not play well at all yesterday. I haven't seen true give up fashion. So I think Tomlin has still kept the locker room together for now. Could that change? We'll certainly see and watch it the best that we can. But it was frustrating when you hear players post game, and I know post game after a loss, like what can you say that's going to make anyone feel better? You're looking for answers. You're fresh off the loss, obviously, but we got to take accountability. But we are taking accountability. Well, like what does that even mean then? If we are taking accountability, we need to take accountability. Then what does that even mean in terms of making changes and improving? So yeah, I think everyone in that building is at a loss of how to fix this thing, and that is probably the most damning thing you can say about this team. They do not know how to right this ship.
Right? They don't. They don't. And look, defensive side of football is obviously supposedly Mike Tomlin's calling card. This was supposed to be a put together defense. The calling card of this team to allow them to get to 10 or 11 wins was supposed to be the defense, and the defense is just abysmal overall. Collectively, individually, for the most part, in a lot of cases as well too, and that's supposed to be your side of the football there, and you know you're just not getting it here. So it I there is no fix for offense defense this year.
Yeah, it certainly seems so. All right, Dave, any other final thoughts?
No, just a mess, and I got to go through the all 22 tape 3 more times, and not really looking forward to that. At least it's easy to get through, especially with Buffalo spamming what they spammed, and with the offense only running 40 something plays. It won't be all that tough of a task. But I don't think we're going to pick out too many more things that we haven't already covered already in this show.
Right. We'll talk about it Wednesday. All right, Dave, we have a live stream tonight. I know that's going to be not the most fun experience, but certainly you guys can come hang out with us, vent out your frustrations, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Just search my name on YouTube and hang out with us from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Any other thoughts or news, Dave, feel free. Otherwise, let's get to some emails and close out today's show.
All right. This one from Joshua Moyer. If teams continue to throw quickly against us, should we consider dropping our outside linebackers into coverage more, not just a 3 to 5 snaps a game? Well, here's the thing, Joshua. If you drop the outside linebackers, who's going to rush the pass? Are you going to send guys off the edge? You're gonna blitz your defensive backs more? The answer is not just dropping the outside linebackers more into coverage and look, in those situations, yeah, you might get the quarterback to hold the football longer, but who's going to rush the passer? And do you expect guys like Keanu Benton and Cam Hayward to consistently win enough to make it worth your while in doing so?
Yeah, I get the thought of kind of dropping out and just trying to play like a lot of extreme coverage, but yeah, and I don't think there is an answer. There could be some tweaks, but Pittsburgh is trying a lot of stuff and nothing is working. Should mention, by the way, TJ Watt just not making the big plays. I mean, they didn't ship him a ton yesterday. Some, obviously, but not a whole lot. And facing a backup right tackle that was a guard, like you said, and Alec Anderson, there's got to be more from TJ Watt. Now, when you can't stop the run and Buffalo stays on schedule and those things, that makes it a whole lot harder. But there's some pass rush opportunities there where Watt just not really making an impact. And so, again, your stars not playing like stars. Cam Hayward, the pass rush really hasn't been, the run defense has been good largely, but the pass rush hasn't been nearly as effective as it was a season ago. And so your impact players are not being impact players.
Let's see. From Next Gen Stats coming out of the game, TJ Watt was limited to one pressure on 18 rushes in Week 13. The Bills often used a combination of quick passes and extra attention to limit Watt and the Steelers' pass rush. Watt faced 4 chip blocks and was double teamed 3 times. His lone pressure came when he was left unblocked.
Yeah, I mean, Watt had opportunities in this one, and you're facing the backups there. TJ Watt against anybody is a matchup that you should take one-on-one. Certainly when you're facing Alec Anderson, you expect more. They got 3 quarterback hits in 2 games combined. Dave, the last 2, they have 1 sack. There's no pressure. There's no run defense. It's almost amazing Buffalo only scored 26 in this one, and in large part due to their own takeaways, which were good plays. At least the Eccles interception was a nice play. The Cook one was kind of a fluky, self-owned by Buffalo, but yeah, this one could have been even more of a laugher.
All right, Joseph Thomas about DC turnover. How many DCs have the Steelers gone through since Tomlin has been the head coach? I'm tired of the Terrell Austin hate. Maybe he isn't good, but how is Tomlin not catching more heat from the national media when he is a defensive mind that has the highest paid defense in the league and has a historical bad defense? I feel like his DC is just a scapegoat. Is it me, or does it feel like at this rate the fire Tomlin narrative will have more steam than ever going into the offseason? I think the last bit of your question there, the fire Tomlin narrative is going to only get louder and stronger, especially and not. It doesn't matter if they beat the Ravens or not. Look, you got the Dolphins coming up on a Monday night. After that, the Dolphins are really starting to at least get things together going offensively. You worry about that quick. What's his name? Devin. A-Chain, and the speed that he has, and I think they got didn't they get the tight? Who did they get back?
Darren Waller came back.
Waller came back, and all. So I mean, you at a couple of weeks ago, you're looking at Dolphins thinking maybe you could potentially circle that one as a win there. You got the Ravens twice. Can you win both those games, not just one? You got the Browns who can play defense. You still got to play them. You obviously got Detroit coming up on the schedule here. Yeah, it's going to get louder. As far as the look, Austin and Mike Tomlin both wear it defensively, plain and simple.
Right. The question is, does a DC change anything? If you fire or let Terrell Austin go, probably the parting of the ways, thinks contract is up after this year. How much does that materially change the defense?
Yeah, probably not much.
Yeah, right. So in that sense, I think Tomlin has to wear it more, because if you're saying the DC change doesn't change much, and that implicitly says that it's still Tomlin's defense, which it very much is. 3 DCs in Tomlin's tenure: Dick LeBeau, Keith Butler, and Terrell Austin.
All right, Chris Lookhart says, "Hey guys, happy typical Tomlin day. Is it me, or were those fire Tomlin chants getting loud like the Canada chants? It's time, I think. ... I mean, it's the loudest. It's the loudest it's been, and yeah, I mean, I don't know how else to answer that question. Yeah, the fan base is super pissed off, almost to Canada, right at Canada level now.
It will be interesting. I think that's a good point. It's not a question of will these things continue, the fire Tomlin chants and train, but how much louder does it get? We're not at Canada levels yet. Canada was something I've never seen before, where you have college game day signs. You have people at the Capitol building with Fire Canada signs. I mean, that took it to almost a meme type of level. How much louder will it get for Tomlin? It's going to grow for sure. The question is,
here's the thing. You only got two home games remaining right now. So, yeah, the Dolphins game, if you come out flat against the Dolphins, you're really going to hear them then, especially if you're coming off of a loss to Baltimore. That could potentially be where it reaches Matt Canada stage, is first half against the Dolphins.
And then your last game of the season is hosting Baltimore. Will that game mean something? It may not. We'll see. But that would be the literal end of the regular season, where you'll get that last sense in your final home game. But Canada even was louder outside of just home games. Again,
Penguins games.
it permeated every aspect of culture. Like I said, Pat McAfee show, College Game Day, random Washington D.C., all over the country. Like it became a meme. So the question is just how much louder does it get? What level does this thing go to? Is it just kind of the during the game, the chants, or is this thing going to go to that Canada level, which I think was something completely different? I don't know. It certainly could get real loud, but that'll be interesting to watch.
All right, let's see what else we can get to before we close out the show. And we got a lot of emails in here. We're not going to get to all of them. Tanking from Ian Bussot writes in, when I ask this question, remember that I'm a football idiot, X's and O's and scheme wise. So I have to ask, when it's apparent even to me that everything the Steelers are doing is inept, is there a chance they are tanking? And Alex, I know you probably dwelled for some time on the Bills' historic rushing game, and I remember you talking about some of the other negative records the defense has graced us with this year. Will you do an end of the year article with all those negative records all in one place? He says, I would like to see all that was historic about this defense in one article. All right, Alex, I'll let you take that second part of the question, and I'll take the first part. Are they tanking? No, they're not tanking. They're just a piss poor team. Period.
You almost wish they were tanking so you could have a good excuse for why they're playing so bad. They're actively trying and playing this bad, which is almost in a sense worse. That's a great idea for an article idea. Yeah, I'm going to take that one for free. That's a really good idea. So I'm sure once all the hay's in the barn, we'll do something like that. It is historic. As you said last night, Dave, as we joked all year, Mike Tomlin was technically correct. It is a historic defense, just in the other direction.
All right, let's take one more and then get out of here. We're not going to get to all these emails. A lot of them are saying the same thing, but we do have a live stream tonight. We will allow y'all to yins to vent for an hour during that. Brian Tellini, yesterday was painful. I was at the game. The fans are defeated and they are tired of watching crap football. One comment and one question. They are ruining Renegade. It shouldn't be played at every game. It should be earned. As someone shouted at the game, read the room. That's a good point there. Renegade teams. It's almost a joke now because these teams during practice now they'll play Renegade at practice, and it's almost like they look forward to hearing Renegade so they can almost mock it now at this point.
Yeah, there is no fear coming into Pittsburgh, like you said, and that is, as I've said probably too many times this episode, a very damning indictment of this franchise.
All right, here's the question. Can you explain to me why on 4th and 2 our offense decided to run the ball up the middle with Gainwell instead of Warren, with Jonnu Smith responsible for blocking Gregory Rousseau?
I cannot. I have no explanation other than this team is trying to overthink it and be too cute and say we're going to try to hide the ball and, not we're going to try to pretend like we're doing something else to make you think we're going to run a pass or we're going to, do something creative and throw you off the scent. And it obviously is only hurting Pittsburgh. And your offense is struggling as much as it is. Go with what you know. Go with your top guys. Put players in positions to succeed. That is the definition of coaching at the most basic level. Pittsburgh is not doing that.
I lied. I'll take one more from Jeff Berg here. Howdy. What side of the ball would you say is worse, the offense or the defense? And the yes. Yes. This game on both sides of the football was abysmal, period. So it's hard to say which one was worse, really.
What about for the season? Which side of the ball has been better or worse?
I mean, we've seen some splashes of the defense doing things against the Colts, and then you really haven't seen anything really sustainable on offense whatsoever. So, I mean, I'm going to say the offense has been worse, but only because the defense has turned in a few decent performances.
Yeah, I would probably say the same. When was the last time Pittsburgh played a good offensive game? Not even a great one, just a good offensive performance. I think it was week 7 against the Bengals, right?
Maybe.
How many good offensive performances has Pittsburgh had this entire season? I'm counting 3. Jets, Vikings, which even left stuff on the table, and first game against the Bengals.
Okay.
Any disagreements?
No, I had to run back through them in my head and all, but I can have my arm twisted in a moment like that.
All right, fair enough.
Also, I get all the Steelers don't fire coaches mid-season stuff, but at what point does something happen? This is the worst I've seen in my 50-plus years on the planet. Everyone sees it. Ex-players see it. Commentators see it. Fans see it. Only people who don't see it are the Rooneys and the coaches. Look, they're with the division still technically up to grabs, they're not going to fire Mike. I mean, they're not going to fire Mike Tomlin during the season. It's just it isn't going to happen now. Terrell Austin, I mean, Mike Tomlin claims that going to look at all personnel, potential changes this week. We've heard him say that before, only just to move a pebble, But I guess it wouldn't be shocking if they turn Terrell Austin loose this week, but I'm not expecting it.
Yeah, if there was anybody to go, it would be him. But if it was late in the season, I don't think maybe there's a loss of responsibility. Maybe Tomlin takes over more defensive play calling, something to watch for, I think, very much starting with this Baltimore game. But I wouldn't expect a dismissal in season. When it comes to Tomlin, the thought I've always had is Rooney does not want to eat that money, that massive contract he gave Tomlin, because those are fully guaranteed. And if you fire him, you still owe him the money. Now,
there
the
might
question
be
is,
offsets in that.
that's what I was going to say. The question are there offsets in that, or if Tomlin took a job elsewhere, and if he became available and wanted to coach, he would certainly get another job somewhere else and be very highly paid for it. Would there be an offset that would help reduce that amount of money that Rooney would owe? I think is certainly a valid and interesting question, but I still don't know if Rudy's gonna do that with such a big contract left.
All right, we got through the emails that we have time to get through here. So with all that, we will close out this mostly negative podcast with good reason and all too. So as usual, if you like what we do, you can follow us on Twitter, me at Steelers Depot, Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you want to donate, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. Tell them about the live stream tonight one more time.
Yeah, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Dave and myself answering all your Steelers questions and looking at your pitchforks and torches, I'm sure. Just check out my name on YouTube and come join us. And please be gentle to at least Dave and myself. We're in a fragile state.
All right, that's all you get from us for doom, gloom, and agony for at least today. And we'll be back on Wednesday going through the All-22, talking about what Mike Tomlin did and did not say, and whatever players talked to the media on Monday as well. So until Wednesday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.